13th annual Fort Lauderdale edition of OUTshine Film Festival. I'm Jen Kritz, the board vice chair, and we're thrilled to have the writer and director from the feature film, The Novice. Please welcome Lauren Hadaway.
Hi.
Live from Paris.
That's right. Pandemic escape, so...
Well, welcome, and thank you so much for bringing your film to our Fort Lauderdale Film Festival. First of all, congratulations on your winning the Best Narrative Feature at Tribeca. What an accomplishment.
Yeah, it's nice to, having spent like a year in post-production in my kitchen, and then to get to show the film at Tribeca. That was like the first big festival kind of back. We had an outdoor screening. It was the first time I saw it with an audience, and then to have people respond to it positively was really nice. So thank you.
And professionally, I mean, you really, winning the Best Narrative Feature is enormous. Yeah. One of the central themes of The Novice is perseverance taken to the extreme. Knowing the challenges of how to put together a film of this caliber nowadays, how much did you draw from your own personal perseverance?
In terms of making the film specifically, or in terms of like the subject matter of the film?
I would say writing it and then making it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Kill Bill when I was 15, and that was really the film. I wanted to be a filmmaker, went to college, was overwhelmed, imposter syndrome. I went into post-production, which I love because you can do it in a dark room. And then moved to LA, and I mean, there's like no clue. No one knows how to start anything. So I really, kind of sort of my own career, like through even my first career in sound design, very sort of goal-oriented, making very specific goals, kind of working backwards towards them. And I started getting some success in that. And it was November 2016 that I set a goal to transition into writing and directing within 5 years. And the film's coming out December 2021, so that's 5 years, 1 month, not too shabby. But at that point, I think, it's really important to kind of make active steps and to be very decisive, and you have to be very gritty in these things because everyone has a script. Everyone wants to be a director. Even like telling people you want to be a writer director, like to come out as a writer director was harder for me than to tell people that I date women. It's embarrassing in LA, being the cliche writing at a coffee shop. But I actually wrote the first draft of the script. I was working on Justice League at the time, and they were doing the reshoots. Like Zach went off, and then Joss came on, and then they reshot like half the film. They sent me to London for like 5 weeks, and I had all this time to kill, just sitting there rotting, waiting for the actors to come out in between their scenes to kind of piece the film together. And started writing The Novice, and just the first draft really just came out. And I think from there, what was hard after that, because I was pulling from my own experience as a collegiate rower, sort of the cliche, right, what you know, but it was after that was really the hard kind of just never ending part of finding producers and all the false starts and stops and this sort of hopelessness and whatever. And as a director too, and on these indie projects, like you're kind of, you have to keep things going and the momentum going on your own. And that was quite brutal. I actually thought I had given up the film was ever going to get made, and I had written other things and my head was in something else when the producers were like, you're gonna go location scout. So kind of persevering and keeping on it and keeping like the sort of not giving up, I think was a huge thing. And then obviously just the shooting the film. We shot, I think 24 days plus a splinter. Like that was, my first week as a director, first time director, was Water Week, which I'm sure a lot of people in the audience or anyone involved in film would have this know that water, babies, and animals are the most horrific things to work with. And that was an absolute nightmare. And go into that. And then the post-production process. I mean, we were doing the post during the pandemic, and the sort of being in my kitchen on my laptop, cutting the film, doing things for the film in isolation while the world was ending was not easy. It feels like this never ending thing, but it's really just one foot in front of the other and kind of put the blinders on and keep doing the work. And honestly, having to finish this film probably helped get me through the pandemic. So.
Well, we have a lot of experienced and inspiring filmmakers here as part of our OUTshine community. For those at home watching, can you speak more about how challenging it was securing the funding for this film and getting it all the way to the screen?
Yeah, so in terms of, because again, my experiences I've seen a lot of films come together from indies all the way to huge giant blockbusters and had familiarity in that regard, but putting it together from the beginning I had no clue what I was doing. What I did first was I put the script on the Blacklist, which is like a screenwriting hosting site, more so just to get kind of have people read it that I didn't know. Because again, coming out as a writer was embarrassing. And the film it got positive kind of reviews, and I sent it to a couple close friends. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm gonna really try and send this out. My current manager actually and the producer on the film actually found me off the Blacklist and pursued me pretty heavily there. And then another friend of mine I went to school with, actually college, he had produced a small indie a couple of years before that I had done the sound for. So I sent him the script, and I thought that these two guys together would be a good kind of partnership, because one's kind of very indie on the ground in the trenches. The other was kind of the agency world, big picture, focused on story and developing the script. And between the two of them, some of the financing came from my old collegiate friends, producers, his production company, and then the rest it was this constant process of sending out the script to production companies, waiting for them to read it, passing, whatever, taking a couple of generals here and there. There was sort of like, are we gonna, and then the budget, it's also like, you have this budget and then you just slowly whittle it down more and more and more. So you're not really finding any more money, but you're finding ways to make the film cheaper and cheaper. A lot of that, I rewrote some things, I condensed locations, I cut out characters, things like that. You start getting creative in that way. And then we found through sending the script out, we found another kind of financier who came on board. And then it was this, again, like false starts and stops. We had people that we were talking to about financing, and it was sort of some sketchy things happening, which happens in the indie world. And none of it kind of worked out. And I think what finally was like the financiers who were involved ended up getting just kind of like, said, fuck it, let's just do it. And we cut the budget way down. When we went into shooting the film, and me and my producer, we talked about this, is like, there's a budget for post, but there's no fucking money for post. Like, we knew we were going to burn through everything that we had to get the film made. And I was like, look, worst case scenario, I have a background in editing, I have a background in sound. If I have to do all post myself, you know what? The film will be done. Let's just get it shot. Let's get it in the can, because it's easier too. When you have a film, when you have a product, you can show someone. Like, if we need money, like, well, here's the film, watch it. Like, it's not like there might be a film, it's going to be great. Like, it's like, here's the fucking film. And so once we got to that point, I did start editing. I was doing a lot of work on it, and we kind of like sent that out. And I'm a little bit I'm like, I don't want to know about the money stuff so much. It stresses me out, but we were able to kind of like slowly piecemeal funding together through post to kind of get us across the finish line, piece by piece. So yeah, I think that answered your question. The long, convoluted answer of it.
Well, thank goodness also that you do have all of this amazing experience in sound and in editing, because, you can really, really see it in the film. I think that sound carries a film in such an enormous way. How involved did you decide to make the sound right from the start?
It was always a consideration. And I think too, when I was sort of like Alex Dahl in some ways. And when I was in school, I was rowing 20 hours a week, but I was also obsessive with academics and never thought I would work in film. So I double majored in film and business. And I haven't used my business degree at all. But the one thing that I took away from my marketing degree is like, marketing isn't about being the cheapest or the best or whatever. It's really about how do you differentiate you from everyone else. And for me, I had a lot of imposter syndrome going into trying to be a writer director, because I didn't have 20 short films under my belt. I wasn't directing music videos and commercials. I didn't come from the traditional route. But what I really realized is I have this thing that makes me different from a lot of people, is I have this background in sound. And I truly believe that sound is half of the cinematic experience. And I think that you can fuck with the audience in a subliminal way, like reptilian things happening, putting things in speakers. And it's a relatively cheap tool. And I know from my own experience, working from indies all the way to huge blockbusters, that directors, no one's thinking about sound as much as it could be. And so when I was writing the scripts, there was a lot of sound things that are in the film now that were there all the way in the script stage. Like, I was thinking about writing it. And two, it's an indie. Like, you don't have all this money. You can't see all these things. You can't see the crowd on the shoreline. We don't have $500,000 for the extras we want to put on the thing. But you can put one sound effect, which is free, and suddenly you have a whole crowd, those kind of things. So you think about that, and you can think about cost, and was doing that from the very, very beginning. And then too, when we went to shoot the film and thinking about visually what we wanted to shoot, like working with my DP Todd, this was his first film too, and talking about like a lot of the things are very close-up shots, and visually that's what's happening, but sonically too, things are sort of, it's zooming in on her and we're losing her perspective, and it's really about her kind of emotional journey and psychological journey that she's going through. And for me, the beauty of cinema is you don't have to be literal with things. And the other challenge too of this creatively is like, how do you make an audience 99% who don't know anything about rowing, how do you make them sort of get into that headspace with the character? And you have to use everything to your advantage, the sight, the sound, all of it. And so we really tried to like make it feel, I tried to capture what it felt like for me to be a collegiate rower and about to pass out doing something, or being this sort of like tunnel vision obsessiveness. And so much of that was really from the beginning all the way to the end about sound design specifically. And then the music, there's the music and the score. The music, I always knew pretty early on the idea of the 1960s kind of love songs. The score was the one thing about the film that I never had quite a clear vision for what I wanted. And it was kind of the last thing to come together, actually. I re-temp scored the film probably 3 different times. And like when you make a film, typically editors, they're cutting the film together, but they're also putting in like sound effects and using score tracks from other films. You might have 100 different tracks that you're cutting in and out and trying to like sort of make a fake score for the film, and redoing that over and over and over. It's a ton of work, and I couldn't figure out what the fuck, like, what is the score supposed to be? And it finally clicked by chance. I was listening to this playlist of random movie scores, and I heard this track from The Farewell, and it was a complete 180 from what I had before. The music used to be a lot more kind of drone and dark and somber, and it just felt too much. It didn't feel right. And then I heard this random track from The Farewell, which is not at all a dark, somber movie. And I was inspired, and I was doing these pandemic drives, turned around, drove home, cut 7 minutes out of the film, completely retemp, scored everything with the music from The Farewell and this composer who I found, and a couple other tracks, and sent him this like impassioned email, like, you got to come score the film. Like, you inspired me. It's finally the 11th hour came together, because that was right before all the festival deadlines kind of hit. So sounds, music, score, all of it was so important. And I think that people should be thinking about it more, frankly, when they're making films.
I completely agree. You're part of what makes your film just feel so easy and comfortable to watch for an audience, and yet takes you in, is the way that you've done the sound, and the way that it just all comes together so professionally. So, it's amazing. Let's move into the conversation about casting your incredible lead actress, Isabel Furman, as Alex. And what was the level of training that she had to endure to prepare for this role?
Well, first off, casting Isabel, I mean, the thing about the indie world, again, it was like we had all these false starts and stops, and I thought the film, and every time you think your film's going to go and it doesn't, it's like a fucking heartbreak. It feels like you just got broken up with. And we had another actress attached, actually, and when we finally got greenlit, she called me like a day or two later and was like, Lauren, I can't do the film. I got cast this other thing. And I was like, fuck my life. Because after everything that had happened, I was like, finally, it's come together. And I had just gone through this breakup and all these, I was just in this bad place and whatever. And finally it was going to happen. And then this news came, and I was, you've got to be kidding me. We had like 6 weeks before we were shooting. And I was like, and this actress too had done training and things. I'm like, and I was very clear from the beginning, whoever does this has to know how to row. We cannot use doubles. We aren't going to do like green screen things. We aren't going to do that. We need to, like, they have to know what they're doing, and they need to be training a shit ton, and whoever's doing it needs to look like they can do this part. So we scrambled, and we got a casting director specifically for LA to cast, kind of to find this role, and auditions came in, and Isabel came in through an audition, and I had sent, I mean, and there's a lot of sort of details. And one thing about the casting that I took with me and really took to heart is I saw this Q&A from David Fincher once, and he described, I tell the story a lot, but and Isabel used to hate it, but now she agrees with me. But he described that when he's casting, he really tries to think of who the actor is as a core, as a human being, because at the end of like a long day, they're not this character anymore. They're themselves. They're just fucking tired. And I took that to heart. And so when I was casting all the roles, I would like look at their social media, I would read interviews, watch like I would watch their material too, but watch things where they weren't quote unquote acting and just trying to get a sense of who they were as a person. And Isabel, when her audition came in, first off, it was obviously incredible. She also did 2 scenes. Everyone else only sent 1 scene. And I had actually sent 2 scenes out to the casting directors, found out later that they had only sent 1 out for everyone to do. But Isabel had instinctively done 2 scenes, and the second scene that she did was the one that I had chosen too. So she like instinctively just knew. And then had like props in her thing, and like had done her makeup and like the like sort of fatigued makeup, and just like the little kind of details like that. And then too, she wrote me a letter, like very eager beaver wrote this letter and had like put pictures in it and described how she had this relay race running to Las Vegas, and how she had worked through injuries and all of this stuff. And so all these like little details, plus her amazing audition, and then met her in real life. And she had this binder full of like, it had all these little tabs. She had everything printed off, just like extremely prepared. And all of these things, it's like, yes, she's fucking talented, but she's also like kind of Alex Dahl in a way. And it just worked out. And then too, when we were like, okay, this is our Alex, she dove right into training. She was rowing like 4 hours a morning every day, if not more. And then she was also doing her own weights and running in the afternoons. So she was exercising like 6-8 hours a day, the 5 weeks leading up to the film. And I had to go off we shot outside of Toronto. I had to go to Toronto for prep. So she would, text me from the marina at like 4 in the morning, and she would be taking naps in her car in between training sessions, and kind of keeping up on her progress, sending me videos. Like she had to learn how to fall into the water and get back in the boat. She was extremely dedicated. And even when we started shooting the film, like despite being already the first week we were rowing, you're on the water 10 hours a day. Despite that, she would still wake up early and go. The school had a rowing tank. She would go there, and the coaches of the school would go there and coach her. And she would be working out after we were shooting, and we had 1 day off a week. She'd be working out on those days. So she was extremely committed. She did all her rowing. She went in the water. It was fucking winter time. Like the day after the first week was water week. The day after we stopped shooting, I think it snowed the next day. Like that's how cold it was. So she totally committed completely, and she was just incredible. So.
And tell me, what is it that after having finalized this amazing film, what is it that you want the audience to take away after watching?
I mean, I always thought that I think this film might be divisive. I think that I've kind of always said that I think 50% of people, when they're done watching this, are going to feel really revved up and like want to go conquer the world. And probably the other half are going to be like, I don't know. I don't think that was worth it. Like, I don't get it. It's not for me. And I want that sort of disagreement. I want people talking about it. I think the one thing for me is I am very all or nothing. I am very goal oriented with things, and sort of whether it's writing, relationships, when I'm obsessed with rowing, when I was obsessed with bodybuilding, these different things, I kind of you lose perspective on things. And like, I don't know. I mean, Alex Dahl, part of it's coming of age, and I'm still trying to find balance now as I'm getting older. And, with Alex, with her story, this is essentially her chapter 2 in some ways. We hear about her high school experience, and she didn't really quit until she was forced to quit. And then this time, I like to think it's her freshman year, she had this experience, but I like to think she's grown a little, because this time I think I'm assuming this Q&A goes after the screening, but this time she makes this decision on her own, and is sort of growing in that way. And I don't know. I mean, there could be a chapter. There's not going to be a sequel, but in theory, there would be like a chapter 3. Like Alex gets an internship, Alex gets a job, Alex moves to Paris, and does whatever, and these kind of things. So I don't know. I mean, I guess for people who are younger, it's sort of like, where are you going to find purpose? What is it worth? In a lot of ways too, this film is my existentialist anthem. I grew up in small town Texas, where people were very religious around me, but I never really connected with that. But when I went to college, I discovered existentialism, very cliche college revelation, but this idea that life doesn't have meaning, you give it your own meaning. And that for me has been very profound. And I think Alex, you know, as a proxy of me, as a proxy of my experiences too, it's like this is the thing that she found her meaning in. And I think, you know, I want the audience to be thinking about like, what is my meaning? What is my purpose? What is my drive? And is it worth it? Like, she sacrificed a lot for what she did, and for what? I mean, she wasn't trying to go to the Olympics. She wasn't trying to do, you know, win. Not even really. It's not even about winning races. There was not like other teams that we care about. It's this very internal experience. And I think some people aren't going to understand that, but personally myself, like I feel very internally driven, and I think a lot of people do, and I think that there aren't so many films that explore that. We tend to want like clear, this thing happened to her mother was a rower, like she wants to go to the Olympics, these kind of things, and that to me is quite unrelatable. So I don't know, I mean, that's very nebulous, all over the place to answer, but hopefully some insight there.
Well, Lauren, The Novice is spectacular. We are so grateful to have received the film to show at OUTshine. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in the future things that you bring.
Thank you.
Thank you.